I have a question for you.
Shoot.
Okay. So for a similar situation, if you conceptually, like we've all had kind of these conversations or we are aware of situations in which people are given a certain time left to live. So you go to the doctor says, I'm sorry, Colin, you have maybe a year and a half left to live.
This is like the bucket list.
Sure.
The movie. Yeah.
Yeah. And, what if instead of you, just your life was ending at that time? And it could be up to a year and a half, right? We don't know exactly when you're going to die, but it is that kind of like exercise of like, what if you only had a certain finite time left that you knew for sure you weren't going to go past? What would you do with your life? Bucket list.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
What if instead of your life, it was your career? And let's say it's 3 years. So in 3 years, you are not allowed to work anymore. It's not just this job. You can't get any other job.
Oh, that was my next question.
No other jobs.
I'm just done.
You are done. You cannot generate wealth anymore. What would you do?
Let me ask
3 years?
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do I receive a universal basic income? What is the financial standing of my life?
You have basic money that you've already set aside for savings, and you have the same amount of UBI that everybody else does.
So this isn't just a me thing. This is everyone.
Nope. This is you. This is your clock. Now, people will have UBI, right?
Okay.
I don't know when that starts in the next 3 years, but it starts.
Okay.
And then you have a deadline. You will be unable to make money. And it's not because you won't try. It's because all of a sudden in this job, you can't. And then when you go to try to find another way to make money, there's no options for you. So
my skill set is now irrelevant.
You are useless now.
I am useless to society.
You have been replaced. Welcome to the Compound Growth Podcast with Colin and Wheeler, where we talk all things growth. From financial growth to career growth, personal development to societal progress, we explore how each layer builds on the next, compounding over time to shape who we become. Each week, we break down complex ideas and emerging trends into clear, actionable insights. Because growth isn't just about numbers, it's about understanding the world and our place in it. The information in this material is for general information only, and is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Investment advice offered through Integrated Partners, doing business as Ko-Fi Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor. Integrated Partners does not provide legal, tax, mortgage, advice, or services. Please consult your legal tax advisor regarding your specific situation. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. The economic forecasts set forth in this material may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that the strategies promoted will be successful.
Okay. So what I do over the next 3 years doesn't necessarily make an impact then. I can't say I'm going to try to make the most amount of money I possibly can over the next 3 years.
Why?
Is that I'm asking?
You could, yeah. You choose how you spend the next 3 years on the career side, right?
Okay.
You have, it's kind of like a clock, a ticking clock. Clock runs out. You can't make more money. You'll get your universal basic income. You'll get to live off of whatever your wealth is that you've already accumulated. That wealth can continue to grow, but your ability to impact your wealth is gone from earnings and income and other investments like that.
So this is really a two-part question.
Okay.
Because the question is what do I do until I'm unable to work?
Correct.
And then the question is what do I do after?
Fair.
Okay. So what I would do this might be cheating.
Okay.
This response, because you already kind of took this out. I'm just going to test this, see if you let this fly. What I would be doing over the next 3 years is I would be changing my skill set.
Okay.
To something, even if it doesn't generate income.
No loophole. Okay. What? Okay. So you would take the next 3 years. Why couldn't you do it after that? You can, if it's not to generate income.
That's a valid point.
Right, it's a
I
hobby,
just
right?
wasn't sure if I would have the ability to change my skill set afterwards.
Sure, you can do whatever you want afterwards. It's
Okay,
not
then
going to make you
that
any money.
changes things. I think what I would do over the next 3 years is I would be working to squirrel away as much money as humanly possible.
Yep.
So I could have things like emergency funds and whatever, and excess money to, if something went wrong. So I'd have that set aside. I would be working to adjust my lifestyle to appeal to the fact that retirement has come much sooner.
Yeah.
And I'm going to need to make concessions with my life.
Yep.
And I think realistically, I could probably make some pretty dramatic concessions to my life with still being happy. Like, I think it would take a lot for me to be unhappy just in general. And then at that point, I would come to terms with the fact that I need to occupy myself mentally with something other than work.
Sure.
Obviously, it can't be like something that's going to require a ton of money. So I'm not going to go like race cars or something like that, or like go join a super expensive country club or anything like that. So I would probably develop some hobbies that gave me fulfillment that were also relatively low barriers to entry. Then, it's funny that this is timely because I was having a conversation with a family member last night that is approaching retirement, and they are going to be done soon. And they were like back on the phone last night because they take so much pride in what they do, and it defines who they are so much that they feel when they retire, they're going to be unneeded.
Yeah.
Because kids are gone, they're out of the house. They have a high paying job right now where a lot of people look up to them and go to them for direction. That goes away. And you're in this podium position, and then you are removed and there's no crowds around.
Well, the sense of identity is
tied
up into that.
Yeah. So I think what I would be trying to do during this time is alleviate any anxieties I have around displacement.
That would be a really good use of your time, I think, personally.
Thank you.
Because you do have to, like, if it's flipping a switch essentially and saying, like, when you have this thing coming up, it's almost like, remember in high school, as you got closer and closer to graduation, you would develop, or maybe not you, but many people develop senioritis.
Yes, I definitely got that.
Yeah, right. And it's like because it's coming up, right? And it's like it changes your behavior when you have that finite deadline.
You do.
And we talk to people about this all the time because we help people get into retirement, and we help them navigate that transition. But it's happening for them in a relatively understood timeline, right? Like they kind of like, okay, I'm that age.
Sure.
And I'm getting tired and I'm just sick of this and I want to retire, or maybe I'm just being forced out because I'm that age. But either way, it's like age based. And I feel like if you were in your situation right now, where take this like all the way, you are still young, you have an opportunity to earn money, but you're also going to be spending your time kind of adjusting your lifestyle to live off a lower amount of money. If you have a family, that then increases that expenditure.
Certainly.
Right? So then you have to make that choice. And then it's like, well, how many kids can we afford? Like,
fair.
Is that a choice, or is it? Because when I think about this, historically, people don't have kids and feel like they're financially prepared for it. Like most people, when they have kids, they're not, financially, they're not prepared in most ways.
No, right? Of course not. Yeah.
Like people ask, like, when are we ready to have kids? Never.
Yeah. You just do it and hope for the best.
Exactly. But I mean, like, there's all these different scenarios. And then, saving for college is something we spend a lot of time talking to people about. But I don't even know what college would cost in that situation,
I think you would have to have, in that environment, I'm not saying it would happen, but let's just say there was a mass displacement of people. You would almost have to have deflation, because at that point, I think a lot of people would be tight on their purse strings and product prices would have to come down. That's just basic supply and demand and economics right there. If no one's buying a product, the price of it is going to come down to be more competitive, or they're going to go out of business. But I think you were generous with your outline for me because you gave me plenty of time to think about it.
I did. Yeah, I did. And I said I took it from 1.5 years to 3 years.
Right? You did.
And that does give you, it's a finite timeline and it's up to 3 years, right?
Mhm.
To be fair, like you mentioned emergency funds, you know,
Yep.
I don't know, maybe that's useful if it's before 3 years. But we're talking about this because there's a thought out there that we are in this phase of American history where the time to make money is running out.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of fears out there. And I know that there are a lot of fears out there because we talk to clients and people about it all the time.
Yeah.
That their job and their current skill set may not become irrelevant, but might not be as valued as it once was, leading to fewer job opportunities, lower compensation, and potentially having to evolve what they do on a day to day basis. And
Yeah.
if that's the case, and if AI is able to replace a lot of the jobs that are out there, then you could have a mass displacement situation, which would bring up the question about the unified basic income,
Yeah.
universal
So
basic income.
let's talk about what's going on, right? So we have AI really kind of more and more intertwined with our system, right? With our culture, with our business, with our just like personal lives, right? It's everywhere. The Super Bowl, like every commercial was
an AI commercial.
And it's like, you know, some of it was funny. Did you watch the one with Chris Hemsworth getting killed by AI?
I didn't watch it yet. It's on my list of things to do.
That one was good.
Yeah.
But most of them were not very good. And
I was unimpressed with the commercials.
well,
The Super Bowl in
nobody's ever
general.
impressed with the commercials. It's just like the halftime show. People like get really excited for the halftime show and the commercials, and then they're always disappointed.
Commercials used to be good in the Super Bowl like 10 years ago.
Everybody always says that too.
Universal opinions.
Welcome, boomer. So I think right now you have a lot of people who are involved in the creation of AI saying time is running out, right? They say they can see a future, and in that future, the worker is displaced, and it's the white collar worker, the knowledge worker, but it's also the blue collar worker because we have AI and at the same time we have robots. And it might not seem like it's the same time, but you know, XAI is building robots. XAI will essentially be part of Tesla, which is all part of Musk, and Musk is AI and robots.
Tell the audience what Tesla's big announcement was recently.
Right. So Tesla, they are canceling the new construction of Model 3.
Well, they discontinued Model X and Model S.
Model
so they're
X
most
and S.
expensive two models.
Yes. And they turned the factories that were building those models and dedicated them to building robots.
Yeah.
And Musk has a goal of making robots affordable to the quote unquote average human family in the next year and a half.
And the theory is that the robot industry will become as big as the auto industry.
Yeah. And it's not
point.
just Tesla. NVIDIA is building robots.
Yeah. It's a race right now. And that's the thing that I think is the craziest part about all of this, which we'll dive into a little bit more too. But the speed and rate of change is dramatic right now.
Yeah, it is.
Every
And I think it's, we if you look to history in the past, which I, done, and I have some allegories, et cetera, that I want to go through today, but this speed is so fast that we don't know how to really predict what happens next.
No.
And if it's, people are reassured because in the past, when we've had technological disruption, we found new jobs, different jobs that used to matter, didn't matter anymore, and new jobs did. Now we're finding a place where, or the concern is that there won't be new jobs, and we'll all basically be a nation state. We'll be living off the wealth generated by the companies, which will be taxed. We won't be paying taxes because we won't have any earned income.
You can even tax the robots.
You can you'll tax the robots, right? You'll tax the companies that have productivity from the robots. And it's, there are countries, I think Kuwait is a country that does this with oil. Alaska does this with oil. So not a country, but a state that does this with oil. So there is reason to believe that this could happen. And I think that the change there is two parts. It's not just people won't be able to find work, but maybe they also won't want to find work because they have, in this theory, their basic needs provided for them.
Well, yeah. And then at that point too, it would be very difficult to just consistently generate wealth if you're not working, but then the wealth creation comes down to owning certain systems. So it's owning the software, it's owning the robots. I think Tesla too. They talked about that robo-taxi that was going to come out with no steering wheel, brake pedal, gas, anything. It's
That's
literally
happening. Yeah.
just 4 seats, and that's happening. And the question is, A, whether or not they're going to sell that to every consumer out there.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then if you owned one of those, then you could rent it out as a taxi service, and then other people could then use it, and then you would get the revenue stream from it. Or is it the case that companies like Tesla will own it and you rent it from them? Whoever owns it is going to get the wealth generation. And it's the same thing with the AI.
I think that's where it's going to be. I think the people have talked about your car doesn't do anything all day, just sits in your driveway or the parking lot here at work. And so why not just have it go make some money for you?
Right.
Which is a very, autonomous and industrious way to think about things. But it's not the way most people are going to live their lives. And I feel what's interesting about this point is that you have, these people in Silicon Valley, they're all tech heads. Some of them are people who grew up with like cyberpunk and they watch movies like The Running Man, or, they have this idea of dystopian future and they want to get on the good side of the dystopian future that they think that they are building. It's like this velvet rope that's going to drop. And then on one side, you have the wealthy, and then the other side, you have everybody else. And the wealthy aren't even paying for everybody else. They just own the businesses that pay for everybody else.
Yeah, it's literally just people renting and using services provided to them by them.
Sure.
And that's what it is. It just all comes down to ownership. And I think it's going to be very difficult if this world comes to be. I think it's very difficult to grow and scale wealth if you don't own assets.
Once you're out, you're out.
Right. It's just like real estate, you look at like the price of real estate that's gone up so much in the last few years, makes it very difficult for young people coming out of college who are already strapped with student loan debt to go on and find a mortgage and to buy a really expensive place. It's very hard to justify that over just renting.
Yeah. I'll say right off the bat, I don't believe that's going to be the case.
I don't believe it either. I don't. Like, I think people are creatures of habit, and people naturally are competitive. I'll say that this country is capitalistic, which is good or bad one way or the other. And I think with people being habit driven, I find it hard to believe that even if there is a universal basic income, that people won't want to strive for more.
I feel like in general, if you believe that the universe is always expanding, and so as like components of the universe, we are essentially doing the same thing. And this country is essentially built on the idea that you can push and grow and get essentially more. Then I don't know what necessarily changes that in the DNA of the people. But I do think that the opportunity can be limited. I mean, this is why people are like, well, we have to go to space now. We got to go colonize Mars. There's no opportunity here on Earth.
Yeah, it's all gone.
Everybody's always very extreme. But I think we should talk a little bit about the Gilded Age, because I think that's actually the best representation historically or comparison to where we are right now. People have been talking about the tech bubble and the internet, et cetera. But if you look at the Gilded Age and the evolution of the railroad, electricity, you had this massive wealth generation for the robber barons, right? The Carnegies and et cetera. Rockefellers. And it really did feel like you were in or you were out. And those are the people that had the fancy houses, and they had the servants, and they had the electricity that not everybody got to have, and they owned the railroads. And the people who saw that and said, I want to be a Rockefeller, would get washed out in a crash, like the 1907, like there'd be a crash where only the strongest survived. And there were people who were proud of this. Like Carnegie wrote a book about like how to be wealthy. And it was essentially like, own it. By the way, you can't, because we already own it all.
Right.
The game Monopoly was basically designed about this. It was right. You have to just race to own everything before everybody else. That's how you win the game. And if you don't, then you're a loser.
You suck.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. But you can also see that too with the different generations of even people that we work with. the younger clients that we work with aren't in a race to own everything. I feel like the younger people we work with, and we've talked about this before, are in a rush for experiences or are trying to get freedom.
Yeah.
Versus, I think the idea of ownership is also the idea for the younger generation of being tied down. Versus on the flip side, if you go to the older generations that we work with, the idea of ownership is wealth. Even if you have rental properties that are cash flow negative, it is still better to own than to rent in a lot of circumstances for those particular people.
I am old enough to remember when Gen Y was never going to own houses. Like they just like, it was not their thing. They didn't want to be tied down, blah, 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 blah. They get older. They want to own houses. This is what happens all on the way, right? Home ownership is what generations grow up to want if they don't want it when they're early.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're young, the idea of traveling the world and doing all these things and having experiences is probably top of mind for you. In the same way it was for me. I saw myself as being a vagabond in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Now I'm good with staying home every Friday and Saturday night, and I don't need to go out. I love my house and it's great.
Yep.
But I think at some point there's a mental shift with people where they do want to own.
I think it's a path, like it's a journey, and it's something that it's kind of rinse and repeat. We see it happen over and over and over again. And it even happened back in the Gilded Age, because what changed from, so the Gilded Age was late 1800s into early 1900s.
Early 1900s.
Right?
Yeah.
Like 1910 maybe might be when it ended. On the other side of Gilded Age, you have World War I, and you have the, what was the outbreak? The flu, the Spanish flu.
Spanish flu.
Spanish flu, yeah, which was kind of like their COVID. It's not funny. It was
bad.
It was pretty bad. So on the other side of that, you had the Roaring '20s. And what changed is government intervention. So you had these robber barons and these essentially people who were the wealthiest individuals in the country at the time, and the turn of that century.
I believe that was JP Morgan too.
Yeah, Morgan was in there as well.
Yeah.
They're next wealthier than the people who are now by like inflation adjusted, right? They were just like countries in and of their own like person. Right. And anti-monopoly, anti-business essentially came in and spread the wealth. And you needed that government intervention. People found ways to make money, to your point, that it's not that there's going to be just like a finite finish line and there's no way to make money in the future. People will find a way. And I think that's why I don't believe that this is going to happen again, because historically it didn't happen. It felt like it was going to happen, and then it didn't.
Yeah, I think there are things that are so inherently ingrained in human nature that I think to just say that all goes away,
right,
is basically a statistical certainty that that's not going to happen. Even if robots come out and they replace a lot of the existing jobs and things like that, and we're down to an ownership scale, there will always be ways of, I don't want to say monopolizing the system, but there will be ways to grow and scale wealth. I do truly believe that.
Well, I mean, so we have the Trump accounts this year, right? And we have the government handing people money as essentially a buy-in to the market,
right,
and the type of the country that we are. So I wonder about that. Is that there to help people generate wealth? Is it there to placate people?
I don't think it's there to placate people. I don't think it would have been presented if there wasn't a core belief, because it was agreed upon by basically everybody that it was a good idea.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would have been presented in general if people didn't see investing in the market and wealth creation to be a positive thing.
Do you think it's happening now? Why now? Why do you think that this is finally happening now? Because we heard about it, it was like 3 or 4 years ago.
I want to say it comes down to having an excess cash flow on the balance sheet, but that's not the case. But that's not the case. Why now is probably because I think there is starting to be that Gilded Age growth disparity in regards to the upper and lower class. And if we look at the tax code changes that were recently introduced, a lot of people are like, oh, well, this is tax cuts for the rich and things like that.
Sure.
we have a lot of high earners that got hosed by these tax cuts. But when I talk to a lot of clients that are in the middle class, they benefited dramatically from them because you have much higher SALT deductions. You're able to deduct more. And that was a huge increase. You also have higher 401k catch-up accounts, and now you have the Trump accounts as well. So there are benefits to the lower and middle class as well. And I think in my mind, it's trying to even the playing field a little bit more because you do see a pretty big wealth gap at the moment.
Yeah.
And it is growing, especially as markets increase. And that's the biggest thing for me. I think people look at wealthy and they get upset that obviously there's this huge wealth gap that's increasing, which is valid. And that's happening because what did the market do for the last 6 years? Apart from 2022, the market's gone straight up.
Yeah.
And if you're an owner of stocks, you benefited from that and now you're wealthy. But if you didn't, you're in a tough spot compared.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think that's where we've landed on these accounts as a good thing. Right. But they are kind of a buy-in to the capitalistic society. That's what they are by design. Like
100%.
This is how they were pitched.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is interesting, I was talking to clients yesterday and, we were talking about the Trump account. We talked about it before, but they were like, is it really called that? I'm like, yes. That's what it's called.
Yes, it is.
There's no pretend name that we can give it.
Most people become president aren't the most humble.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I said, if it makes you feel any better, it's not his idea. And they said, well, what else is new? But the real point there is what I found myself saying is that this idea has been around. This is just the president that put it into place. And it's not just like him, but it's his cabinet, it's his administration. And the reason I think this is happening is because the people who want it to happen finally have a president's ear. And I think that, the people who are in charge of these big tech companies, they'll support whatever president is there asking for support.
Because they need the business. Yeah.
So they're incentivized for sure. But their circle, the Elon Musks of the world and his circle who supported this idea had a chance to get in front of this administration. Right. I doubt they even pitched it to Trump himself. Right. They got to the administration and the administration approved this. I think what's interesting is that the Gilded Age was ended because of government intervention. And yet the current Gilded Age that is being created by new technology and the people in charge of it are deeply entwined with this current administration. It's kind of like you've let them in the gates. And now how much influence do they have? Can there be serious government intervention on behalf of quote unquote the people or the other, the have-nots? Is that even possible anymore?
I don't know. I do have to say that I think there's a level of good in everybody. Like, I think, most people aren't born just inherently evil people. With that being said, I believe that even the people at the very top, the Tim Cooks, Bill Gates, Elon Musk's, that circle that we talk about.
Bezos is the one everybody doesn't like. If it's not Musk, it's Bezos. Bezos is the worst.
Whoever it is that people don't like. I don't think that those people in general are interested in totally screwing the entire US population.
No.
By living in a country where there's just mass layoffs and unemployment and just like a bad situation. And to your point, they did go in and lobby these Trump accounts, which shows that there is some desire to make the wealth gap less than what it is now. There's a chance for people and younger people to benefit from compound growth.
Yep.
So I think that is a positive thing in general. And to your point on the Gilded Age, the government basically saw these monopolies that are out there and put restrictions in place to help prevent that from happening again. And then you had things like the Great Depression and all that stuff, which eventually helped to reset it even more. But I'm not saying there's going to be a Great Depression, but there are events and tools and structures that are put in place to help even the playing field.
Well, the Great Depression didn't really impact the Rockefellers, right? It's not in the same way. It's the same way where you were talking about how, the average American can put more into their 401k if they can afford it.
Yep.
Right. But that's not a wealth generation for that, 1%. That's not going to be the big.
The 1% don't care about an extra couple thousand in the 401k.
What I think is interesting is that people will have good intentions. I believe that the Trump accounts, there's good intentions there. I think it's people who saying, I found success this way. I think this can help other people find success, right? Or generate wealth. I don't think it's with ill intent, but I do think that there's a disconnect, like where they don't quite understand what it's like to be these people.
Of course not.
Right.
Yeah. Did you ever watch, I think it was Ellen or Oprah? Someone had Bill Gates on.
Oh, yeah. The milk thing or whatever.
Yeah, the milk thing. And they were asking him what the price of things were in the grocery store. And they were like, how much is a gallon of milk? And he's like, 20 cents.
Yeah.
And like, how much is a dozen eggs? And he's like 15 cents.
Not a good look for Bill.
No, not because he hasn't been grocery shopping, but it's not his fault. If you were worth $50 billion, you wouldn't be going to the grocery store to pick out your own groceries, most likely, because your needs are elsewhere. You have a lot of responsibilities. You have a lot of things you have to do. So I don't blame Bill for not knowing the price of a gallon of milk. I do agree that people get disconnected once they get to a certain point, in the same way that I don't know what it's like to grow up and come from Compton. For me to say that I understand what that person's going through, I think is misinformed.
To inherently understand.
Correct.
I think you have to listen to people to understand them. And not everybody gets a voice, which is part of the issue. They broke up, the railroads, right? They broke up Rockefeller.
The Monopolies,
they were just wealthier after that. It's funny how we can go into things with the best intentions and not receive the outcome that we're trying to get. And I wonder how outcome focused, like if they're communicating with AI to come up with this idea, and AI is like, hey, just give everybody $1,000 and put it into the S&P 500. And you're like, well, that sounds like a great idea.
We'll do it.
Do we understand the outcome? Do we understand what that really means to people?
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, you look at the Rockefellers today, and I can't remember the exact stat, but I don't believe that there's like hardly any heirs that are worth more than a couple $1 million at this point. Like pretty much all that wealth creation is now gone.
Yep.
And in the same way, like the Carnegie Mellon left behind a lot of major foundations and stuff like that. There are certain instances and many instances where I think it's the first generation creates the wealth, the second generation preserves it, and the third generation spends it, I believe is the saying.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. And there's a whole lot to unpack and explore there about how to help the next generation. I think the universal basic income thing is really interesting to me. And I know that this is something that's been around for like a decade now. People have been talking about it.
Finland actually put it in place for a year.
Yeah. And then what happened?
It actually did lead to, I'll say, like higher satisfaction amongst people. It didn't prevent many people from actually working. They just basically added it in addition to. But it did lead to higher life satisfaction within Finland, but they did stop it after a year.
Why?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think they only committed. Right? They only committed to 1 year just to see what would happen.
Well, you need to
to see if people would stop working and be lazy. But no one, I think, inherently just wants to do nothing.
To settle. I think it just raises the bar, or maybe it just raises the cushion. It's like when we think about the lifestyle creep, right? That we talked about. It's the same thing. It's just like, well, now I get this, and this is just everything that's standard and normal for me. And if I want something better than that, then I have to go out and find it.
Right.
Did you see The Running Man? Have you ever seen any version of The Running Man or read the book? So there was an Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's a Stephen King story.
Okay.
Schwarzenegger movie in the 80s. Glenn Powell took on the Schwarzenegger role. And it was a fun movie, but the concept is essentially like you have the haves and the have-nots. Mm-hmm. And this is an 80s, story. So the have-nots are satiated by TV, right? It's basically just like you feed them content, distract them, and, give them the basic bare bones minimum to live. And they just go do their own thing. And then you have a wall that keeps them on the other side of the wall. And then the haves that have all the money. It's like the dystopian future. And I think that's the future that some of these tech savants or people are envisioning and building. I don't know. What's interesting to me is that they're actually out in the open saying it, right?
So hang on. I'm not sure if I'm picking up what you're putting down. So basically what you're saying is that the tech people right now are building a world where people have the bare minimum and they just kind of and
they're distracted by whatever it is. And don't worry, we'll provide the bare minimum to you. Mm-hmm. You're going to be taken care of, but you'll never feel like that's enough. So then you'll try to find ways to have more. And then there will be limited ways to have more. And then it's kind of like Lord of the Flies type of situation.
Maybe, but on that same argument, the idea of always having more isn't limited to the lower class.
No, I know. But they're the ones that don't have the opportunity to have more is the point of that scenario.
But I feel like what we're doing now is we're saying that there won't be an opportunity for you to build.
That's wealth. What they are saying is what I'm saying.
Oh, right?
I'm not saying that's going to play out, but that's what they're predicting. And I think some people are saying, like Musk is saying essentially, that there's going to be complete chaos. And on the other side of that, it's utopia. Like dystopia and then utopia. Don't worry, we got to get through the dystopia. The first episode of this podcast, we talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
Right? We said, you got to get to the other side of this valley. You know, emergency fund might be a good way to build a bridge.
Start.
Right? And I think there's something more to that. And to your point, other ways of like just changing your skill set and things like that you can do now to help you bridge the valley that may or may not be coming, but I think is probably coming. But when you have somebody out there saying, chaos, dystopia, it's around the corner, and I'm making that happen. When does that ever, like, when do people, I can't think of another, like, time in history when that's been the case, where people who are actively building dystopia are celebrating it, and they're telling people, get in now, or else you're going to miss the boat. And I don't think they're right, but it's interesting that they think they're right.
Yeah. I don't know if I've heard people say that, but I believe you. I don't think when Steve Jobs invented the iPhone, it was his intention for all these different social media companies and news outlets
to
inundate you 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, he was just interested in creating a beautiful device. And in the same way that people are very interested in getting their own points across, even though your point might be damning for someone else or completely contradictory to another person's opinion. And I don't know who's right or who's wrong, because if we had a crystal ball, we wouldn't be sitting here. But what I do believe, and I'll just go back on, is that I think people generally have good intentions. Some of the worst atrocities in history have been created with the best intentions. But I feel as if human nature will always find a way. It's like Jurassic Park. You know, when they talk about in the very first Jurassic Park,
life
always finds a way.
Yeah.
And I do believe that to be the case. Whether it's a dystopian nature or whether it's people participating more in the market or whether it's people finding ways to make money in space. Yeah. I have no idea what's going to happen. But I think when everybody is so aligned on one particular idea, that's recipe for disaster, because the famous Mark Twain quote, it's not what you think you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure about that you're wrong that gets you into trouble.
He coined the term the Gilded Age, by the way, Mark Twain.
Ah, funny. All comes full circle.
Good
yeah. So that's just the way that I feel about it. Is I think whenever someone is so confident about something, I inherently distrust them.
Distrust them?
I distrust them because I think in order for you to be so confident about something that's going to happen in the future, I think you're not taking into account all these other black swans that could come up that will totally derail your argument. I think to say this is going to happen is not right.
I don't know if trust is the word that you mean in that situation. Is it mean like trust means that they're trying to do something bad or something? Like it's more like you don't believe what they're saying because they're too confident in what they're saying.
Yeah, trust, believe, similar thing. Like okay. I don't really believe them at that point. It's kind of like when I'll go back to Brexit.
Mm-hmm.
Brexit.
Yeah.
I think it was a 8% chance that Brexit was going to go through. Every single major financial company was like 0% chance. It's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about it. Next day, Brexit.
Yeah.
Everyone was wrong, apart from like one small firm out of Europe. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but for people to say that they know what's going to happen is wrong.
I don't think that Elon Musk really knows what's going to happen. He's very vocal about what he thinks is going to happen.
And I think it's good to have opinions.
Right. But you're right. People, one of the reasons I don't believe this is going to happen is because it's just too extreme. And
that's my point.
Yeah. Like we see like extreme reactions or extreme predictions all the time. And then something similar can come to fruition, but it's never the exact thing that somebody predicted. Even if sometimes it's very close. And so they say, see, I told you, but it's never exactly what they think it's going to be. And it's never really defined. Like Elon Musk can sit there and say dystopia and then utopia, but like, what does that mean?
What does that mean? Because I think when you get into the details is where it gets very slippery. And when it comes to these types of conversations, I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll have universal basic income and everybody's going to be displaced and we're going to have this crazy dystopian world. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I think certainly there will be companies and jobs, a lot of data entry stuff that will probably go away. People talk about programming all the time. Things will get consolidated and I think other industries may come out, and it's not going to be that no one's working and there's this huge division. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I just have a hard time buying into that.
Yeah, I think what really might be behind this is the fact that the white collar jobs are the ones that are being threatened, right? And that was the path to wealth before.
Totally.
So I feel like people are probably threatened and reacting to that threat by painting a picture that's a little bit more doomer than we would prefer.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely fair. The whole like doomer mentality and this whole thing of the world changing to the super negative environment, I think is unlikely. Things are moving much quicker now than they have historically speaking. You even look at the Gilded Age, and like for railroads to be built took a long time. And for the Rockefellers to generate the wealth took a significant amount of time. Now you have people can create an app and sell it for $1 billion in a matter of a year or two.
Yeah.
And there are companies being acquired all the time. It's very common. And I think we'll have a much higher rate of change.
Yeah. So is this the last chance to make money, Colin?
No, it's not. But with that being said, the ways in which you make money might be different.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's funny that you brought up the app. It's this morning, Jess got a text from, I guess last night, actually, she got a text from Maddie, our marketing person, with a TikTok link, which Jess could not see because she doesn't have TikTok. And it was like a 45-second explanation of how to build an app, right?
Okay.
And how to make an app. And Maddie sent that to Jess because Jess wants to build an app. And that's a very like dismissive explanation of what Jess wants to do. She wants to build kind of like a purpose type app, like a relationship app and a community around it, et cetera. It's not just building a silly game or whatever. And she's like, I don't want to do that. I want to work with somebody and have them do that. I don't want to spend my time building an app. And I'm thinking to myself, like, it's so easy. Like you could just go do this in 5 minutes. Like, I don't think it's going to take very long and whatever. But I think the version of the app, she's worried about it being like AI slop. Have you heard this term? AI slop?
No.
Slop? Tori, okay. AI slop is a very judgy term for AI content. AI created stuff.
Okay.
They call it slop. Anyways, so Jess is like, I want to work with somebody. I want to collaborate. That's her instinct. It's not to build an app. She's a community person. She's going to look for that personal connection with people. And I think there will always be that. And I think you're right that there is good inherently in all of us. And we can't predict what happens from our good intentions. But I don't think we're building a crisis. I think we're building chaos, like the Chinese symbol for crisis is chaos and opportunity, right? I think we're building opportunity. You have to take advantage of it, and not everybody will.
I totally agree. We talked about this, I think, in some podcasts, but we go back and forth on it a lot where it's, I don't want AI to replace us and we want to run with AI.
Right. Yep.
We want to be a part of it and grow and scale with it, which will mean that things are changing in our own business and in our own lives in a very quick way.
Very quick.
Because I think it is likely that someone who doesn't think about this will get left behind. I think that's a very interesting point because like building a house or whatever, like the thing you're trying to do, or even us with the business, you could go in and tell AI to make you a floor plan, or you could go in and have AI give you a blueprint to, run an advisory practice or sell cookies or whatever it might be. But it's not that relationship that is going to give you that collaboration to kind of spitball what it is that you're really looking for. AI is just going to do what you tell it.
I think you get to pay a premium on real now, and that's going to matter in the future. And I think that's what people should recognize and take advantage of as they figure out how to stay flexible and redesign their lives. It's focusing on the tangible and the real because that's what people are really going to cherish and pay for.
Yeah, totally. I mean, all this stuff leads to deeper conversation, more thoughts. And I think personally, as we go through this more and more, and what AI, like with it coming out over the last few years and really adopting it, it's kind of taught me what my values are.
Yeah.
Because it's made me kind of think where I want to spend my time. And if it was to replace something, what would I want it to replace?
Yeah. Cool. That's a good way to end it.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, Colin.
Compound Growth with Wheeler and Colin. Sponsored by Ko-Fi Advisors. Reach out today. Yay!